So good afternoon. This is the last one of the day, and thanks for persevering. We really appreciate it. Once again, this is the Identity-Defined Security Alliance. I said it right that time. We're really telling a story about zero trust, right? So this is the zero trust story. Up to this point, we've seen a lot of multi-factor authentication. We've seen step-up authentication. We've seen adaptive authentication. We've seen some access control components. Now let's kind of go to the next step and talk a little bit about IGA. That's where we're going to go with this one. Go to the next slide. So as some of you have seen, this is the IDSA wheel, if you will. We've got the identity management in the middle of that with all the security components around it. The point of this of these presentations is to talk about integrations. It's to talk about the GA type stuff. So there are no custom configure or custom code. None of that kind of stuff is really being done here. This is to show real integration and to provide some value if you have any of these products to go back in and to deploy. So thus the future is now, right? We're not talking vaporware. Zero trust identity, again, no data, don't trust the user, don't trust the data, trust, don't trust, and so forth. As you can see, we're on the last one. So this is the identity governance and attestation of privileged account management. So this one includes Sailpoint, it also includes CyberArk, and then of course Logarithm. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Adam Creaney of Sailpoint, and we have a couple others to support as questions go along.
Sure, thanks, Jerry. My name is Adam Creaney. I'm from Sailpoint. I worked on this integration with Edward Nunez from CyberArk and Emily Henriksen from Logarithm. And the problem statement that we have for this use case is that unnecessary account privileges gained through over-provisioning or ineffective deprovisioning policies increase the risk of cyber attackers gaining critical access and accomplishing a significant data breach. So it's pretty common knowledge that all identity-based attacks tend to focus on users with privileged access, right? So how do we apply our governance principles to those users and those accounts? If you've been in the previous sessions, you've seen this is a mapping from the things that we're looking at today, which is identity governance and identity administration, to the different security technologies. In this integration, we're looking at both SIM and PAM. That's security information event management and privileged account management. And there's the lines. Okay, so this is the architecture diagram for this integration. And you can see the three main components are Sailpoint's Identity IQ product, CyberArk, and Logarithm. So I'm going to start with the Identity IQ product in the top right. There's two components that we built on top of Identity IQ. The first is our PAM integration module, and that's used to connect to systems like CyberArk through a SCIM connector. Is anyone familiar with SCIM? Okay, so quite a few. So SCIM is the System for Cross-Domain Identity Management, and it's an IETF blessed way to communicate identity and access data through a standard protocol, right? So it's all based on web resources and JSON packages, but what it does is it defines a schema, set schema for both users and groups. And what CyberArk did, working with us and a couple other PAM vendors, is we came up with a extension to the SCIM protocol to encapsulate objects that are specific to privileged account management. So in general, those are going to be containers and privileged data. And so this connection allows us to, CyberArk has implemented a SCIM compliance server on top of their product, which allows us to communicate with them bidirectionally, so we can make provisioning requests and aggregate the data out of CyberArk to Identity IQ. The second component is the SIM plugin there. And what that is it's actually a module that sits on top of Identity IQ and exposes certain endpoints that the SIM product, if they have a sort of next-gen ability to make external calls as a result of seeing certain log information flowing through, it can make those to our SIM plugin, and we've defined 13 separate governance actions as part of that plugin that these SIM tools can then call, and Logarithm can call and say, I want to disable an account, I want to recertify an account, I want to have this person go through, have their account completely deleted, or do an account-based action there. And then you can see the connection between down here, but we'll get to a little later, is the container, the safe in CyberArk is actually granting access to this secure system that's being monitored by the SIM tool. So the SIM tool can get alerts from that system, and based on what's in that alert, you can kind of take action on maybe shutting down the container's access to that secure system. All right, and again, the communication done from Logarithm to Sailpoint in this instance is done through their smart response framework, which allows them to basically gather information from the log file itself, dump that down, I think through it's a PowerShell utility that then calls a Python script, and the Python script will make the web request to Sailpoint. And here's just some graphs sort of illustrating the problem. In the top right, that's a screen from CyberArk, and that's showing, that's a single safe with a lot of users that have access to it, which is probably not ideal. That could probably be due to over-provisioning or this privileged access creep, to use a term we apply to role creep as well. And then the bottom left, that's a report coming out of Sailpoint that shows the number of users, accounts associated with CyberArk that we're aware of. And the two darker screens there are from Logarithm, illustrating sort of a higher than we'd probably want incident rate of, I believe this is trying to demonstrate a user that has a privileged account is they're VPNing in, they're logging into the VPN from two separate geolocations. So that's what those are illustrating, and you can see it's pretty noisy, and you can see it's actually increasing down that bottom right. So before we get into it, I'll talk really quickly about what we consider to be a fully mature solution. So the solution maturity scale goes from defining what the solution actually is to a manual implementation of that solution. Once people are comfortable with the manual implementation, you can start rolling in automation. And once that automation is in place, you can then take reporting out of all these products to then optimize what your solution looks like. Okay, so we need to find out what our solution is. So the solution in this case is we're going to have periodic and event-driven certifications of privileged accounts, and that's going to minimize the high access leveraged surface area available to cyber attackers. So we're shrinking our footprint. We're shrinking the number of people who can access these the safes in CyberArk. And as an enhancement to that solution, we can also roll in a SIM tool to give that proactive, we see nefarious activity happening with one of these privileged accounts. We can take immediate and direct action when we see that. And that's the enhancement to the overall use case. We roll in the SIM tool. So the first manual implementation, this is going to be your generic, Sailpoint certification that's run every 3 months, or ad hoc. You just want to do something, you spot check, your CyberArk application accounts. That's what we're going to do here in the manual step. Later on, when we get to automation, we'll show how that can be streamlined. And this is going to provide adequate pruning of privileged access, and it begins to shrink that threat landscape. And then as part of this, the enhancement again, the enhancement case is the SIM tool coming in. We're going to start setting that up to monitor for this, the separate geolocation VPN login of users with those privileged accounts, that type of thing. So here we go. I hope you all can see this video. We're going to start by looking at Identity IQ. Here I'm logging in as an administrator. And the first thing we're going to do, I believe, is we're going to look at the actual privileged account management interface inside of Identity IQ. So when this opens, you're going to see a graphic display of all the safes that we're aware of in CyberArk. We're now opening a safe, and we're looking at all the users. These are all the users that CyberArk is aware of being members of that container, that safe. That's a lot. So what we're going to do now is we're going to say that's too many. Again, this is in CyberArk, so this is the same data, but represented in CyberArk's UI. And we're pulling it through that SCIM connector. So if we go to certification at that, what we're going to do is we notice there's a lot of users in this one particular container. So what I'd like to do is I'm going to go in and run an actual application certification on my CyberArk application. I'm just going to tell it to run right away and run immediately, don't wait. And then I'm going to say, actually, I want to just certify the accounts at this point. So it's going to schedule this certification. You can see it's been generated. We're going to open it up, and then we're going to see all those users, and we're going to be given the option to actually revoke the account or just allow it. In this case, I'm doing a major clean out, so I'm going to actually revoke the access of the majority of these users, leaving only one user. Adam Kennedy will be that first user is going to be the sole person left in this container when we're done, apart from any sort of service accounts, things like that. And I'm definitely not rubber stamping this. I'm thinking about each one of these. few. And then these are system accounts I'm going to leave in there. So when this whole process is complete, I'm going to hit the done button. I'm going to sign off on my certification, and what will happen is it's going to make a delete request through that SCIM connector on these user accounts in CyberArk, and CyberArk will accept that and do whatever it needs to on its end to disconnect those users from the application. So we're finishing up, and we can actually head over into CyberArk and see the user's already gone. I'm going to refresh again. And so Adam Kennedy and a couple of system accounts are still in there. There's a couple groups as well. And then again, going back and looking at the same view within IdentityIQ's Privileged Access Management dashboard, we'll see that the users now are minimized to just Adam Kennedy and an administrator that we're aware of here. So that's the base use case of we follow the same procedure on the schedule if you want to. It doesn't have to be run. I just did that ad hoc through the UI, but that could be set to certify every 3 months, whatever your compliance schedule is. You might want to be more aggressive. If you believe there's a problem, you can be more aggressive with that and really start to trim it down fast. Yes?
So the certification is done by the government's identity governance, right?
That's correct.
The accountability is done by the identity administration, right?
So the IdentityIQ initiates the deprovisioning of those accounts. We send the request to CyberArk. CyberArk handles that request. Their SCIM server will take that request, or SCIM PAM server, I should say, will handle that request. And then what we'll do is we'll go back and we'll re-aggregate the information from CyberArk, and we'll get the updated information that has been removed. So this next is showing that enhancement using logarithm. And I will try and explain my way through the logarithm process as well here. Again, we're going to look at the privileged account management screen in IdentityIQ. We're going to again, you just saw this, so this might be a little repetitive, but Adam Kennedy is still in that has access to that safe. We're going to go look at his identity. You can see he has an active CyberArk account when we look at his identity. And there it is. And then we're going to switch over here to, again, proving that he's still the only person in there, and that he is still in there. We're going to switch over to logarithm, and I'm going to pause here. The logarithm dashboard is going to load, and this is going to be hard to see because it's hard to see for me, but we're going to switch over. This is their alarm screen, and so what will happen here is we have an alarm set up. This one just popped up. That's the alarm that says, somebody logging in from separate geolocation at the same time to the VPN using the same account. That's bad. So alarm goes off, and we've tied a smart response to this alarm that will give the option to hit the Sailpoint SIM plugin that's installed in IdentityIQ. And this one in particular, if you look down in the information over here, you'll see that the user origin is Adam Kennedy. It's X network admins, which is part of that whole Project X safe. We're going to go through, and you'll see there's an alarm actions and a smart response actions down here. So if we look at the two origins, South Carolina and Tehran, so that's probably, worth looking at. And then when the smart response action comes up, you'll see you have the ability, there's some information about what that alarm was, but you have the ability here, pause again, you can approve or deny it. So this is a manual checkpoint stage in this process, right? So from inside of logarithm, you have the opportunity to approve this or to say, no, never mind. Either case, you can append it to whatever case was open in logarithm. But in this particular instance, we've designed the SIM plugin to be really flexible, so you can either do direct provisioning or workflow provisioning. You can have approval steps in there. So this is logarithm approval. Once that gets fired off, any additional approvals you set up in your governance engine to regulate the deprovisioning of these accounts based on what comes into the SIM plugin, that's completely separate and available. So if we go, what's going to happen here is the user will approve this. This is going to go, it's going to hit that Python script. The Python script is going to make the web request back into the SIM plugin. The SIM plugin will respond with a 200 if it's successfully created the alert in IdentityIQ. Creating the alert in IdentityIQ starts the audit trail as well. It's creating audit events. It's creating alert objects inside of IdentityIQ, and so the whole governance stuff comes into play there. Here we're just adding it to the case so you can look back and see what happened in logarithm later. We'll go and refresh CyberArk. We'll see that Adam Kennedy should now be gone, which he is. And then again, we can look in Identity IQ in the PAM screens and see the same result reflected there. All right, so just the admin user is left there in a couple groups. And you can see we have a SIM dashboard built into Identity IQ. It's a plugin that shows we had an alert on this day, which is when the demo was recorded, and some other alerts that came in of different types. That top donut shows different types of alerts that came in, and then the applications that were associated with the most alerts from the SIM product. So this is not meant to replace the SIM dashboard in a SIM product itself. This is just to give your identity administrators a kind of view into what's going on in that SIM system, what requests are originating from the SIM product logarithm. Okay, so that was the implementation of sort of a manual process with the checkpoints you'd want to have if you weren't quite ready to automate, and then you can roll in that automation. So those certifications can be kicked off in response to identity events. So a user, the demo we're going to see in a second here, the user goes from being an active employee to a contractor, in which case you might want to review his privileged access. And so I will skip right to that. The enhancement here is that whole process we saw within logarithm that can now be automated. You don't have to have that approval step to say, okay, I need my logarithm admin to see what's going on here and approve this. We know that this is a bad thing. We never want this to happen, so let's go ahead and automate the process. So going over to Identity IQ now, this is going to be the automation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up, again, Adam Kennedy has somehow gotten himself back into this Project X safe. So we'll use him again as a guinea pig. We can let him, he's back in there, he's active, his managers, Doug Flores. We can go look in the certifications now. We're going to a different screen here. We're showing certification events, and certification events is basically an event that will get triggered by some action. And when we look in this one itself, we're going to see that the action is going from employee type employee, or employee type employee to contract, and that's just going to fire off here. This is just a fake HR, open source HR product, so just ignore what's happening other than I'm changing this user's employment type to contractor. This is Adam Kennedy. And so once that's done, when we go through the normal cycle in Identity IQ of aggregations and refreshes with process events turned on, that's going to see that certification event trigger has been matched, and it's going to launch this certification against this user's CyberArk accounts. So yeah, you'll have to be a little patient here. The process gets kicked off. We're going to have to wait till the aggregation happens and the refresh happens. It's pretty quick since we're only doing a small HR system. Looks like it's complete. And we can see the result for a single identity refresh on Adam Kennedy. And you can see that an event process was 1, so that's the expected behavior here. And then if we go look at our certifications, we can see that a PAM employee type certification has been triggered. And we can go in there and you can see it's the same screens that we saw with the entire application accounts certification, except that this is scoped down to just a single user who matched that trigger. And again, same choices, revoke or approve. In this case, we're just going to revoke, and we'll see the same result. That user's account has now been revoked from the CyberArk server itself, and then and we've pruned back, again, the threat landscape. All right, so he's gone to Sailpoint. And the same thing inside of CyberArk. Okay. So once the automation is complete, the next thing you want to do, you want to make sure that what you're doing is beneficial and is having the desired effect, right? And the desired effect is perhaps your desired effect is a reduced number of alerts that you see in your SIM tool for multiple logins of the same VPN account from different geolocations, right? So you want to be able to gather those metrics and see that by reducing the amount of people who have access to privileged accounts, we've also reduced the number of these events that we're seeing in our SIM tool inside of logarithm. And then based on that, we can then go optimize. And this is just another screen showing that, at the end of the day, this is from a real sort of more live example without just focusing on Adam Kennedy. But we've reduced the number from what it was, 23 accounts, down to, what is this here, 15, and then same deal from CyberArk's point of view. And then so once you got the reporting down, you got your systems in place, you can now begin to optimize. You can iterate on the successfulness of what you've already put in place. So you might need to increase the number of triggers you have for those certification events for your privileged access accounts. You might need to tune back the SIM alerts. That's all part of the optimization phase of a fully mature solution. And yeah, these solution components, as I believe Jerry mentioned, these are all things that are available now. So CyberArk with their SCIM server, that's available. Sailpoint, we're using IdentityIQ 7.1 or higher, our PAM integration module and our SIM plugin, and then Logarithm with the Smart Response framework. Yes? Yes, the PAM integration module is GA, and that's available. And then on CyberArk's side, that's available too, right? The SCIM server is just, okay. Yeah, so all of those parts are there.
And the response from Logarithm, what is their plugin sending you a common event format event?
Right, so inside of our SIM plugin, we've defined the inputs that the endpoints will accept. And so we provide a list of, you need to provide the application name, you need to provide, if you can, an account name. You need to provide whether you want to do direct provisioning or workflow, and that's all configurable within Logarithm. So that's part of their smart response. You would tune that in there. Anyone else?
So any other questions? Well, thank you very much. You can see this is our slide of members. Thank you for enduring, and have a great party later.